Hello, today we're talking about basic technology infrastructure for a nonprofit. This is about the actual systems that make your nonprofit operational and sustainable. By the end of this video, you'll have a framework to assess your nonprofit and figure out two things. One, where you actually stand right now, and two, what to do about it without spending more than you need. Let's begin by looking at what is actually going on at most small and new nonprofits. There is a spreadsheet or two that someone built that only one person understands. Email that's split between a personal Gmail and an old organizational account. A donation page on your website. Accounting done on a spreadsheet. A bank account that has not been reconciled. While the dream is an integrated platform, small nonprofits on a budget need to work with what they can afford. If well managed, this can be done with basic tools and good data discipline. Now, the promise of integrated solution is that these tools all talk to each other, automating and streamlining your operations. While true, they seldom mention that there needs to be good data discipline in addition to a solid oversight and administrative function. This is something many small nonprofits can't fund. This video is not for those with many employees and funding to acquire and manage more complex systems. It's for the smaller or new nonprofit. The goal is to support small and new nonprofits, assess where they are, and provide guidance on how to think about any software that they use. So here's the framework. 6 pillars, 6 buckets that basically every nonprofit technology decision falls into. The first is productivity and collaboration, and that's how your team works day to day. The second is CRM, and that's how you track relationships with donors, volunteers, and beneficiaries. Next is fundraising, how money actually gets from a supporter to your account, and it includes grants too. Next is accounting, how that money gets recorded, tracked, and reported once it arrives or once it's promised. Then there's security, how you protect the data you're holding. And finally, website and communication, and that's about how you reach people in the first place. I want to walk through each one, what it covers, why it actually matters, and what it takes to keep it running, because that last part about keeping it running gets skipped a lot. Every one of these needs a person, even if that person is just you for 20 minutes a month. Addressing Pillar 1, this is your internal core, email, document storage, and a shared space for your team to work. Now what it encompasses is a shared email domain, a place to store files so they don't disappear when someone leaves, and a way for people to communicate that isn't 4 different group texts. And why it matters is that this is about continuity. If your only copy of a grant report lives on one board member's personal laptop, that's not a system, that's actually a liability. Now, once you have all this, administration is something you need to consider. Someone needs to own the user accounts. When a volunteer leaves, does the access get removed? Who resets a password at 9 p.m. on a Sunday? Who sets file access rights on shared drives? What are the rules for data management and retention? Who are the managers? Now, email is a must for any operation, and there are free solutions and deeply discounted ones. An example is Google Workspace for nonprofits. Google also has a suite of free spreadsheets and presentation tools. Microsoft 365 for nonprofits is another option. While you're small, you could track your donors, grants, volunteers, etc. on spreadsheets. Some of the larger platforms offer free versions or tiers. Be aware that there is often a steep learning curve and a cost of implementation, and that could be hours of time required of your team to set it up, and often key features behind paywalls to lead to increased fees. When it's time to select commercial software, check out our other video on software selection tips. Moving on to Pillar 2, CRM, Constituent Relationship Management. Think of it as your organizational memory that stays with you even as staff move on. Now it tracks every donor, volunteer, and beneficiary interaction, who gave what, who volunteered when, who you promised to follow up to, etc. Now why it matters is that the institutional knowledge stays with you. If the person who just remembers all your donor history moves on, and that knowledge was never written down anywhere else, you've lost it all. A well-maintained CRM is what covers that risk. Now the administration piece. This is the pillar that requires the most ongoing discipline. Data only stays useful if people actually enter it consistently. A CRM with messy, half-updated records is barely better than no CRM at all. So budget time for someone to own data hygiene, not just a software license. Tools like Salesforce's Nonprofit Success Pack or Bloomerang are common starting points when you're ready to scale up. Let's look at Pillar 3, fundraising. Fundraising is the engine that actually moves money. And what it covers is the donation page we touched upon, recurring gift management, grant management, and the analytics that tell you what's working. Why it matters is that, in terms of donations, friction kills donations. Every extra click or confusing step on a donation page is a chance for someone to abandon the process. This pillar is about making giving as easy as possible. Now, grants require compliance with an application process, tracking, follow-up, and when awarded, tracking to disposition. Looking at the administration piece, payment processing means compliance. There are PCI standards, tax receipts, refund handling. Someone knowledgeable who understands the basic rules around handling donor payment should be engaged to provide guidance for you to be compliant and as you design your systems. Classy, DonorBox, and Neon One are common tools built for this. But remember that you should get expert input before selecting a tool so you understand the feature functionality you're opting in for. Moving on to the next pillar, accounting. This one gets skipped a lot in nonprofit technology conversations, and it shouldn't be. A 990 filing is a legal requirement for nonprofits. Now, what this encompasses is recording income and expenses, payroll if you have staff, and this sounds easy. This is the part that's specific to nonprofits fund accounting. That's not so easy. That means tracking restricted versus unrestricted money separately. We have other videos on that. If a grant comes in earmarked for a specific program, your books need to show that money isn't available for general operating costs. For more on this, see those videos I mentioned on grants and grant accounting. Now, why it matters is that standard small business accounting software doesn't handle fund restrictions natively. A generic setup can make it look like you have more flexible cash than you actually do, and that creates a real problem at audit time or when reporting to a funder or the board. From an administrative perspective, this is one where most small organizations eventually need a bookkeeper or accountant who specifically understands nonprofit fund accounting, not just a generalist. The software matters less than having someone who knows the difference between a for-profit chart of accounts and a nonprofit one, and also restricted and unrestricted fund management. While not free, QuickBooks can be adapted for nonprofits. Getting this set up correctly can make it work. Other software such as Xero, etc. can also be customized. Customization is not obvious. We include a link below to a book on customizing QuickBooks Online, and we'll get videos out on the others. Now, APLOS is built specifically for nonprofit fund accounting from the ground up, though a tad more pricey. Larger, more complex organizations tend to graduate to something like Sage Intacct. Now, try not to get pulled into the next level unless A, you need it, and B, it's in your budget. Moving on to the fifth pillar, security. This is the one we see most often overlooked. The risk is material. It can not only shut down your operation, but also has potential liability for nonprofit leaders and board members. Now, what it encompasses is covered in some tech speak, so let's begin with the simple stuff and move up. First and foremost, You got to have clear internal policies and procedures. A link to a book on this is below. Next, add multi-factor authentication. And when you've got that done, look at endpoint protection on devices. Now, why it matters is that nonprofits hold sensitive information. Donor financial details, beneficiary records, and are frequently targeted precisely because attackers assume smaller organizations have weaker defenses. Phishing, data leaks, and ransomware aren't hypothetical for this sector. We've seen this happen. Now, on the administration side, security isn't a one-time setup. Multi-factor authentication needs to be enforced across every account, not just the ones people remember to protect. This is ongoing vigilance, not a checkbox. Security capabilities in Google and Microsoft are pretty robust. Applied thoughtfully, it may meet the needs of many smaller nonprofits. The software companies also offer decent security. If on spreadsheet, set up security on files. When you need more security, TechSoup is a useful resource. Don't skimp over this pillar. Moving on to Pillar 6, Website and Communications. This is your outward-facing megaphone. What it encompasses is a modern, accessible website and a reliable email platform to stay in touch with your audience. And it matters because this is often a supporter's first impression of your organization. It's the hook. Outdated or hard-to-navigate sites can quietly cost you donors and volunteers before they even reach your CRM or fundraising page. From an administration perspective, accessibility and content upkeep aren't set-and-forget items. Someone needs to keep the site current, make sure it works for people using screen readers or other assistive technology. This is both a compliance issue and a values one. MailChimp and accessible CMS platforms are common starting points here. Moving on to the concept of connected ecosystems. While the Holy Grail is a connected ecosystem, the reality for smaller nonprofits is that they may have discrete solutions for each pillar. Solid oversight can bridge that gap. Let's look at an example. A supporter clicks a link on your website. That routes them to your fundraising platform to give. The transaction is protected by your security protocols, probably at the fundraiser. Now, oversight action is needed to make sure the whole thing works. So periodically, say daily or weekly, confirm that transaction is moved through to your CRM, whether it's a system or a spreadsheet, and also to your bank account and accounting system. And let's not forget passing it to the thank you email system or spreadsheet. What about grants? A sheet should track grant prospects and decisioning on whether to apply or not. Then if applying, track the application process and decision. If you're fortunate and are awarded the grant, this needs to be communicated to accounting to establish proper fund accounting. When your nonprofit is a one-person operation, you could do this once a week and plan 4 hours. But as you add employees or volunteers, implement processes to keep the data flows active. A breakdown in data flow processes leads to bad data and challenges managing operations. Note that whatever solutions are adopted, this concept of data hygiene is the foundation. There are business cases of large CRMs failing when sales and operational teams fail to update CRM timely. So building this discipline early ingrains practices into your DNA for when you move on to larger integrated solutions. Next, a quick word on free. Before we get to the next step, free nonprofit tiers from major platforms are a real starting point, but read the fine print carefully. Seat limits, storage caps, and feature restrictions are common, and some plans that were free in the past have since been scaled back or restructured. It's worth checking current terms directly with the provider before you build a workflow around them. Now let's look at situational tools. The 6 pillars cover what's foundational for nearly every nonprofit. A few other categories are worth knowing about, even though they won't apply to every organization the same way. First, grant management. That's tracking applications, deadlines, compliance reporting. If your funding leverages grants, think about this and how you're going to track that. Next is case management. For direct service organizations like shelters, clinics, or social service providers, some tracking client outcomes over time. This is different from CRM because it's about service delivery, not donor relationships, and it often comes with its own confidentiality requirements. Next is board and governance management. Portals for meeting minutes, document retention, voting records. This tends to matter more once a board grows past the size where email can keep everyone organized. None of these are wrong to skip if they don't apply to your model, but it's worth knowing they exist so you are not caught off guard later. The next step. Not every organization needs to tackle all 6 pillars at once. Here's how I think about it. If you're a small team with essentially zero budget, focus strictly on productivity and security. Claim your free Google or Microsoft workspace and turn on multi-factor authentication. That's it. That's a starting move. Then use spreadsheets for contact management, donor management, donations management, grant tracking. Consider free software for bookkeeping if the budget will not cover QuickBooks, Xero, etc. Now, if you're a growing mission with a limited but real budget, focus on more robust CRM fundraising solutions, moving accounting to QBO, Xero, etc. Get off spreadsheets and into something like Salesforce or Bloomerang. Pair it with a frictionless giving tool like DonorBox and make sure whoever's doing your books understands fund accounting. Fixing this later is much harder than starting it right. Now, if you're established and you're large, the solutions are pretty clear, so we won't go into that. I know we've covered a lot of ground here. Each of these topics could be covered in separate videos, and some already are on our channel. This high-level framework should help you think about starting or fine-tuning your nonprofit. As always, consult legal, tax, and accounting professionals in making decisions. Now, that's the framework. Take a look at where your organization sits against these 6 pillars, risk rank them, and then address them in order of risk. Comment below if you'd like us to cover any specific areas. Thank you so much for watching.